Okay, let's just dive right in. We've basically boiled down a 2-hour counseling session with the incredible intuitive counselor Michiyo to get to the heart of the patterns that hold us back and, more importantly, how we can finally break free.
We're going to explore 4 big themes that kept coming up in her advice. Think of it as a roadmap, really, starting with figuring out our inner blocks and moving all the way to unleashing our true potential. First up, let's talk about something that is so frustrating and so common. That feeling like you are an absolute magnet for negative situations. From dealing with bullying at work to just feeling kind of unsafe even leaving your own house. This question, in one form or another, was at the center of so many of the problems people brought to Michiyo, and her answer is, well, it's pretty surprising, but it's also incredibly empowering. Now, this idea is fascinating. Michiyo uses this really powerful metaphor. She says to imagine you're a baseball catcher with your glove up. You're ready, you're braced for impact. But in this case, the ball is the exact negative energy you're trying to avoid. You've basically given it a perfect target. And this really shows the huge shift in energy she's talking about. When you go from that passive, fear-based position to an active, proactive one, the whole dynamic just flips. Instead of waiting to get hit, you're putting your own energy, your own purpose out into the world, and that naturally pushes negativity away. Sometimes this can lead us into what Michiyo calls a spiritual rebellion. It's this deep subconscious trap where staying the victim actually feels like the only way to hold people accountable for the pain they caused. It's like we're saying, see what you did to me? And that keeps us from ever really healing. So, the first step to breaking out of this cycle isn't to look for someone to save you. It's actually to turn inward and just be with your own pain, to validate your own suffering for yourself, before you can even think about moving past it. Right, so that inner pain, it doesn't just stay neatly tucked away. What happens when that feeling of being completely stuck starts to show up physically? As things like panic attacks, constant fatigue, or just feeling like you can't find joy in anything anymore.
Michiyo's take on this is that the answer isn't about what you're doing wrong. It's actually about a really powerful energy inside of you that you're just not using.
She says that people with huge creative potential, if they suppress it, that energy can start to misfire. It has to go somewhere, right? So if it's not being used to create, it can turn inward and cause these really intense physical and emotional states. And this is where so many of us get stuck. We try to think our way out of the problem. We get stuck in analysis paralysis, looking for the right answer. But the real solution, she says, is to feel our way out by shifting from our head to our heart. It's about following those small, simple joys. Her advice is actually a super simple 3-step process to get back into your natural flow. And it all starts with giving yourself permission to just stop. Stop trying to solve everything. Just feel. Just experience the moment you're in. So, once you start doing this inner work, it's obviously going to affect your relationships with other people. And that brings us into the really complex world of relationships, guilt, and responsibility. Michiyo points out that guilt and this overwhelming sense of responsibility, well, they're 2 sides of the same coin. We often feel guilty because we've taken on the burden of someone else's happiness, a weight we were really never meant to carry all by ourselves. This right here is the core insight. It's a simple ratio, but it is so powerful. In any partnership, you are responsible for your 50%. The second you try to carry 100%, you are creating a recipe for resentment because you just can't control another person's journey. The real path to healthier relationships is to redirect all that amazing care and responsibility you have and point it back at yourself first. When you take care of yourself, you can show up as a true partner, not as someone's caretaker. And of course, the moment we start focusing on our own needs, we run smack into one of the biggest roadblocks of all. That deep fear of what other people are going to think. It doesn't matter if you're an artist, an entrepreneur, or you just want to speak your mind. That fear of backlash, of the critics, is very real. But here's the question. Where does that fear actually come from? And boom, there it is. This is Michiyo's core message on this whole topic. The external critics we are so terrified of are almost always just a projection of the one that's already living inside our own head. We actually use our own creativity against ourselves. We build these imaginary surveillance cameras in our minds that are always anticipating judgment. And because of the law of attraction, by focusing on it so hard,
sometimes we actually manifest that very criticism we're afraid of.
So the solution isn't to fight the critics out there in the world, it's to stop being your own worst critic inside. Once you do that, you almost become immune to what other people think. Their criticism has nothing to stick to because you're already on your own side.
So as we connect all these dots, you can see the pattern, right? The victim trap, the blocked energy, the guilt, the inner critic. Every single external problem that Michiyo talked about was actually rooted in an internal pattern. The key isn't to change the world outside, it's to transform your world inside.
And that is the ultimate takeaway from her entire session. Every answer we're searching for out there is already waiting for us inside. So the real question is the one on the screen. Thanks so much for joining us to explore it.